Hello, I'm James Cridland, the radio futurologist, and this is Radioland, my international radio trends newsletter from radioland.email. And this podcast is sponsored by rss.com. This week, I've got an exciting graph in the visual version of this, which you can find at radioland.email. And it shows that time spent with on-demand audio has surpassed linear sources of audio. Actually, it surpassed it in 2023. And now, if you look at all audio listening, 56% is on-demand and 44% is live and linear, which is quite a difference. And it strikes me as I see those numbers that radio is used to competing with itself. The number one hit music station, the better music mix, or more variety. They only serve to position radio stations against other radio stations. And that's not where the fight is today, I'd suggest. I have a keen interest in how radio markets itself to listeners, and I wonder whether the unique selling proposition of radio is clear, a proposition that I believe isn't just live and local, but something that's more than that. It's easy to compete with radio's existing listeners, but much harder to convert someone who doesn't listen to radio anymore. And I wonder where the answers are for that. I also share a graph from Steve Jones on LinkedIn. It says 9 years, one reality, private radio profits are down 90%. It's a graph showing the PBIT, which it turns out means profit before interest and tax, for Canadian private radio. And it's a very sorry sight of most Canadian private radio running a profit of around 25%, 23% in 2016, and dropping quite substantially in COVID and never really recovering, being below 4 or 3 or even 2% in 2024. It's a sorry sight. Steve argues that the CRTC's antiquated regulations are part of the story here, and that modernising them will give us a fighting chance, he says. Yes, COVID hurt, but the direction of the industry was already pretty clear from this graph. I do worry about Canadian radio. In order to get anything done with the CRTC, you need to get into their quarterly hearings, which are frequently overscheduled. A sale of one radio station to another operator can take nearly 12 months to get agreed by the regulator. 12 months of uncertainty, which is no way to treat Canadian workers and no way to treat Canadian listeners. I was struck at the Forward conference in Kelowna last month that the CRTC commissioner who made a speech, Claire Anderson, the commissioner for British Columbia, seemed to lack any urgency. The CRTC has been ordered to review a lot of their plans by the Culture Minister, Mark Miller, and while the CRTC proposed a commercial radio news fund for introduction in the 2024-25 broadcast year, it's yet to pay out a penny. A good regulator should regulate the industry and not kill it. As a comparison, I also put from Ofcom a graph showing UK commercial radio revenue. Now, it's not profits, it's just revenue, so it's not quite the same sort of thing, but you can see it looks very, very different, with significant increases over the last 10 years or so, although notably, local advertising is down by more than 30%. Some interesting work from Stream Guys. They're using ultra-low latency streaming for live broadcast radio, which is not an easy thing to achieve. They're using it for baseball, so you can go in to the baseball, you can listen to broadcast radio using your device, and you can, you're actually watching the commentary of something that is happening in front of you rather than something which has been happening in front of you 10 seconds ago. That is not something which is easy to achieve. For the BBC, they are trialling it at Wimbledon this year, which is all very exciting and much more complicated for TV. I gather you need 40 megabits of data in order to actually deal with that. I'm not quite sure why ultra low latency streaming needs much more data, but perhaps somebody will tell me. Some nice but simple production that I heard and saw this week included a music show called Cover Story on ABC Radio National. Nicely produced. I heard the one for In Excess's Never Tear Us Apart, neatly edited to make the panel always magically hit the vocal of any of the versions that they were playing, and it was a really fun listen as well, one that I'd have liked to have continued at home after my drive, but spoilers, might not have been able to. Also, continuity on ABC Radio National. I link to an example of that in my email newsletter with a live continuity announcer reading out texts from listeners commenting on the programme they've just heard. Now, given that most of the programmes aren't live on Radio National, this adds some liveliness to the linear schedule, as well as good old pre-promotion of the next show. I think it works really nicely, and weirdly, it's actually almost a more interesting continuity than BBC Radio 4's, which I think it was modelled on. And on the TV, I enjoyed ABC News' Asia News Week. You might be able to watch that overseas in full. It showed a nicely produced item about the massive issues they have with garbage in Bali, which was interesting, but nicely produced. And then a simple and straightforward Zoom interview with a contributor from Hong Kong about some very bad anti-drug ads which are airing there. But as he talked about the different ads, they were cut into the video. Now, I know that sounds really super simple, but actually, too often those interviews are done live, and they just roll random footage, and they just hope that the footage ties up with what the guy is going to talk about, and it rarely does. If you don't do it live, then look what you can do. It's really nice. You'll find that linked from my newsletter. And does anyone know how to listen to ABC Radio National on a Google Smart Speaker? I would actually like the Queensland version, but even the Sydney version would be a start. I tried Hey Google Play ABC Radio National, and it replied with, I looked for that, but either it isn't available or it can't be played right now. I tried Hey Google Play ABC Radio National on TuneIn, and it said, I'm sorry, but I can't find a specific feed for ABC Radio National on TuneIn. Would you like to play CKWX, which is affiliated with ABC News, which is 1130 News Radio Vancouver, if you cared, and it's affiliated with ABC News Radio from the US. I tried Hey Google Play ABC Radio National on Radio app, and it said, I looked for that, but it either isn't available or can't be played right now. Would you like me to play ABC Radio Melbourne? No. I tried plenty more of these things, and none of it worked. It was a complete waste of time and effort. And 40% of Australians have a Google Home smart speaker, according to the Infinite Dial 2026 in Australia. I can confidently state that none of them will be listening to ABC Radio National on it, though, and I think that that's a bit of a missed opportunity. Where am I speaking next? Well, hopefully, having got rid of this cold, I'll be speaking at Radio Days Asia in Jakarta in Indonesia in early September, keynoting on radio's international trends and its future. I've got some answers for some of the things I've been talking about. Podcast Movement in New York City. I'll be doing something there, I promise. September the 14th to the 18th is when that whole thing is going on as well. I'll also be in the UK for something that hasn't yet been announced, and in Germany for something that you probably can't go to. But that'll be all very exciting. Thank you to the many personal supporters that I have. I will choose Jocelyn Abbey, James Masterson and Emma Gibbs today. So thank you to you three. If you would like to support my work in any way, you can buy me a coffee. buymeacoffee.com/James Cridland is where to become a member. Or you can give a one-off coffee or five over there as well. I very much enjoyed somebody contacting me today and asking how they can pay more money because they don't think that the amount of money that the corporate sponsors pay is enough, which is excellent. So I was a fan of that, and then it all went very quiet. So who knows? But anyway, thank you to those people, including Soma FM. Thank you, Rusty. Radio King, Studio with two eyes, Media Realm, and Clyde Broadcast, the radio people. Very kind of all of you. There's a email version of this newsletter if you would prefer that. It reads rather better than I've managed this time round. I'm also on the Fediverse on Mastodon at james@bne.social if you're there too, and my website has more details about who I am, what I do, and whether I can help you further. That is at james.cridland.net. And until next time, when I hope this cold is gone, thank you for listening and keep listening.